Hello and welcome to another video. This is part 4 of the biblical calendar no one talks about. I hope that this series has been helpful for you, and I hope that it continues to be. I wasn't particularly pumped for part 3, and so I'm just going to do a quick recap, and then we're going to get into part 4. This part 4 is going to be a little bit intense, especially towards the end. I hope that I can make it brief, but still make sense. And if I feel like it wasn't terribly clear, then I'll do a recap and the next part just to clarify some things. But I hope that as you go through the series that this is starting to make sense and that all these pieces can kind of fit together. So let's get into it. Recap so far. Dead Sea Scroll calendar we have dated 300 to 100 BC called the Zadok Priest calendar. It shows a period of 7,000 years of biblical history from Adam and Eve to the end of the Messianic age or the millennial kingdom. Both early Christians and Jews believed that this 7,000-year calendar is split up into 6,000 years of human dominion over the earth, plus the Messiah or Messianic age or reigning of the Messiah on earth for 1,000 years. And this is the oldest known view of, I guess, biblical history that we can find. So we see that the 6,000 years is divided up into 3 ages of 2,000 years each. Age 1, from year 1 to year 2000, the age of creation or chaos, depending on what you read. Age 2, the year 2001 to 4000, called the age of Torah. Age 3, which is year 4001 to 6000, is the age of grace. Then the Messiah comes, or Jesus comes for Christians at his second coming and sets up his messianic kingdom for 1,000 years, totaling 7,000 years. We see that on this calendar, each 2,000-year period has 4 sections called onas of 500 years each. The inner ring, you'll see when I get to the calendar, is of onas, which are 500-year periods, which means that the inner ring has 14 sections going around the calendar of 14 onas. Each ona of 500 years has 10 jubilees or 50-year periods in it, and that's the middle ring, and I'll go through that. And then the outer ring has 50 sections all the way around, showing 50 years. And you'll notice that each section of 7, there's a break, and those are called Shemitah years. So because in the Old Testament, you work the land for 6 years, and then you rest for the seventh. That 7th year is called the Shemitah year. And so you've got 7 Shemitahs, which is 49 years, plus the Jubilee year on the 50th year, and then you would move into the next section of 50, repeat the process over again. I'll go through the calendar again visually, but just so that you understand the different sections. So we saw that the Messiah, the Prince, from Daniel 9, 25 and 26, died Nisan, during Passover 32 AD. You can see my study on the 70 weeks of Daniel. I think that's part 3 of Why Study Eschatology. If I'm not mistaken, you can go back and watch that video. We have from the Dead Sea Scrolls a Dead Sea Scroll called the 11Q Melchizedek scroll, and we see that there's an event that takes place where it's the debt of iniquities for the whole world is paid, speaking to the crucifixion and the resurrection, and that is based on the reading of the scroll, based on is year 3957, and that this event in both of these sections, both Daniel and the Melchizedek scroll, this event happens before the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem in the year 4000 or 75 AD. So we know by linking these two that the year 3957 on the Zadok priest calendar is 32 AD, 4000 on the Zadok priest calendar is 75 AD. So we know that the year 6000, because you just add 2000 years, is 2075 AD. Now the Jubilee that we're looking at, what we're focused on our time frame, is that we're focused on the 12th Ona, the 10th Jubilee, which is the period between 2025 AD and 2075 AD, because that is the last 50-year period, the last Jubilee period on this calendar, before it shows that there's supposed to be a 1,000-year millennial kingdom or messianic age. So here is this calendar that we're talking about. So you see the purple here. So if you go from the top and you say, okay, year 1, and you go all the way around back to the top is year 7,000, then the millennial kingdom is 1,000 years, is 2 onas. So you see here on the inner circle, you've got 2 larger sections. Those are the onas, the 500-year periods. And then you see highlighted in purple as well, the next middle ring shows a block of 10 per ona. So here in total, in purple, we would have 20 sections blocked off, and those are the Jubilees, the 50-year periods. And then the outer ring, if you count them, all those spots on the outer ring is 50 going all the way around. And so you can see here that when you count to 7 on the first section, that's 6 years plus 1 for the Shemitah. That's so 7. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sections on the outermost ring for the 7 Shemitah year periods. There's 7 years of 7 periods equal 49 years, and then 1 year is the 50th year for the Jubilee period. And then once you go around for 50 years, then you would see on the calendar that you'd move over a notch on the middle ring to move into the next 50-year period, the next Jubilee period. And then you go through the 10 Jubilee periods, and you would pass from one ona, the innermost circle ring or the innermost ring, to the next ona. Hopefully that makes sense. So what we're looking at on this calendar showing that 7,000 years, we're looking at this red red section on the inner ring. That's our ona. That's the period of time, 500-year period from 1575 to 2075. Then we look at these green sections here of the Jubilee period. So in that 500-year period, you'd have 10 sections of 50 years. And so we're looking at from Jubilee 7, which would be 1925 to 1975, and then to Jubilee 10, which would be 2025 to 2075. So in the last video, talked about some of the things that were happening before the final Jubilee, 2025 to 2075. But today, we're going to talk about what is expected to happen in this last 50 years. And in part 3, we looked at how Jesus talked about the fig tree, that he cursed the fig tree and it died. But then he talked about that at the time of his coming, we would see the fig tree bloom again. And that fig tree is that the Jewish people are in the land of Israel. They are in Jerusalem. And we saw this prior to the final Jubilee, that now Israel exists. The Jewish people are there. They're in Jerusalem. They're looking at setting up and rebuilding their temple. And that temple is supposed to happen in the final 50-year period. And so when we talk about the length of time that Jesus talked about, because he said, in this generation will not pass, the one that sees the Jewish people return to the land of Israel, well, that would be about 103 years. And we figured that out from Mark 11, that when Jesus cursed the fig tree in Mark 11, that it took from the time of the cursing, 32 AD, when Jesus cursed the fig tree and it died, it took till 135 AD for that prophecy to be fulfilled, where the Jewish people were fully exiled from the land, and the temple and Jerusalem were destroyed in 70 AD. And so it took 103 years for that prophecy to fully be fulfilled. And then if we assume that once the fig tree blooms again, that it will take 103 years for the curse to be unwound, for the Jewish people to get everything back that the Lord had taken away in the first century, then we just simply take 1948 when the fig tree blooms, and we say, okay, at 103 years, which would be 2051. And so I believe that Jesus has cut the time frame from 6,000 years, from looking at for his return at 2075, down to no later than 2051. Now, we still need to account for those years, but what I believe is going to happen is that Jesus will return. There's going to be a great war. Talks about that in Revelation 19. I'll cover that later on in this video. And then all the cleanup. So I believe then he judges the nations, that there's cleanup, there's rebuilding on the earth, because there's a lot of destruction that has taken place prior to the second coming. And so I think that just as there was the church age where Pentecost happened in the first century in 32 AD, when Jesus ascended, that it took till 70, that period of time, 70 AD to 135, for the Jewish people to have everything taken from them. And so then the Gentile disciples went out to preach the gospel, or the Jewish apostles and new disciples went out and started setting up churches in the Gentile world. And so there was a transition point from Pentecost in the first century to 135 AD. And so I think that right now we're in this transition point, for us to complete the 6,000 years. And so the second coming will happen. Then I think there's going to be cleanup and establishment. And then at the at 2075, by the time the 6,000 years are complete, then the millennial kingdom will fully be established. And I think that those years are just a transition. It's not that Jesus isn't here, but I think that it's kind of like preparatory work. So if we say, okay, Christmas is this day, and so December 25th, this is when we celebrate Christmas. But before that, there's all the preparation. You gotta buy the gifts. You've gotta plan your event. You've got to prepare the meal. You've got to do all these things, and then you can celebrate on the day. And so I think that those years are just going to be preparatory work, to prepare the earth for the millennial kingdom. He'll still be here, still be in Jerusalem, but I think that it'll officially start in 2075. And I think that period of time, will be that stuff. So I hope that makes sense. That's just kind of what I'm speculating. Again, time will tell. I want to also go back to this article and just kind of explain what I meant. So if you remember from last video, there's this Israeli rabbi talks about the date of the Messiah's coming. This is the article. I just eliminate the dates from 2021 or 2022 or whatever he had mentioned, and we just focused on the wording. There might have been some confusion because I started talking about fall of this year, fall of 2024, as being the first appearing, or that it could be the fall of 2025 as the first appearing, and why there was some discrepancy. So here I just wanted to go through this. The Jewish belief right now is that Rosh Hashanah, the fall of the year, is when the new year begins. So for example, we're in for the year 2024 on the Jewish calendar, because they look at Rosh Hashanah as being the new year, is that it goes from September, October 2023 to September, October 2024. That would be 2024 for them. If we're looking at the Jubilee year as 2025, and the rabbi is saying he believes that in the Jubilee year, come Yom Kippur, which is just after Rosh Hashanah in September, October of that year, that for them, he might be looking at fall of 2024 when Rosh Hashanah comes. That's when their 2025 year would begin, and it would go till Rosh Hashanah, September, October 2025. So that's why I said that it could be this fall that the Jewish people say that their Messiah has finally come, or it could be in Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, that period of time, September, October 2025, if we're going by the Zadok calendar. So right now, come this fall, Rosh Hashanah, it would be the 2025 year based on the current Jewish calendar, but based on the Zadok calendar, because it starts on the spring equinox, the year 2025 would be March 2025 to March 2026. And so if in the video you're like, okay, is it this fall or next fall that we're waiting for the first appearing? It could be either way. I would look, I'm not setting any dates. I'm trying to collect all this information and say, you know what, here's what I think, and I'll explain again why that's the first event. I believe that we're going to see the Jewish people say, look, our long awaited Messiah has finally come. Here he is, because Christians believe that Jesus is the Messiah, that any other person who is deemed to be the Messiah or claims to be the Messiah are false messiahs. And I think that this is what we're looking for. So I'm not sure if it's going to be this fall or it's going to be next fall, but I believe that when it happens, that is the first sign. And in this video, I'll cover that a little bit more, but that is the first sign that we're looking for. So it could happen this fall. It could happen next fall. It could happen the fall after that. But I'm saying that if we're understanding the calendar correctly, that the year of Jubilee 2025 is when we could possibly see the first sign of Revelation, to where the dominoes start to fall. And so I just wanted to kind of clarify that up, that it just depends on which calendar is being used. The Lord could use the rabbi calendar, which means it could happen this fall for the first appearing. It could happen in the fall of between March of 2025 to March of 2026. So it would be the fall of 2025 as being the Rosh Hashanah or the Yom Kippur period of time that this false Messiah is declared. And then it seems that the rabbi believes that the second appearing, where the Messianic kingdom would begin, would be 1 year later from the first appearing. So I just want to kind of clarify that in case some of you got confused as to which year I was talking about. So let's be specific about what we're looking for. The book of Revelation has been called mysterious, complex, confusing. In fact, if you watch videos, there's a lot of people who try to put their own interpretation. I'm trying to debunk the idea of it being mysterious and complex. Does it take some study? For sure. This whole topic takes some study to kind of understand, but I hope that you're starting to see a little bit of a rhythm and see, okay, how do these pieces fit together? So I'm going to do just a rapid overview of the book of Revelation. I'm not here to do a deep dive. This is just to give you some context. One of the first debates that people have is the book of Revelation in chronological order? Is it literal? How do you understand it? And so when the argument that people say, well, you should read all prophecy as literal. So what it says is what it means to the best of our ability. And so some people will go to Revelation 9, and if you have your Bibles handy, just or use the internet and go to just type in Revelation 9, and you'll see, I believe it's like probably like, I don't know, anywhere between verses 10 to 15, somewhere around there. It talks about the shape of the locust was like horses prepared for battle. On their heads were crowns of something like gold, and their faces were like faces of men. They had hair like women's hair, and their teeth was like lions' teeth. And so Christians will read this and first of all, what does this mean? What is this like? What is this even applying to? Is it some demonic creature? Is it like what? And so then Christians will read this and they'll say, okay, well, we can't take it literally because this sounds so weird. There doesn't seem to be any references to this, or allegorically, like what is it, like what's it a symbol of, what is it trying to imply, and then they'll read into it. And then that's where they get confused. They'll read passages like this and they'll be like, oh man, I'm confused, I'm out, I don't know what this is. So what I'm trying to do is let's establish the outline of the book before we get into verses like this and the real details and try to break it down. Because if you can't understand the 30,000 foot picture of Revelation, then yes, the verses like this are going to be so confusing. You're not going to understand the order. It's going to be a mess. And then you're not going to know when you're listening to somebody who to trust. And I'm not saying like that they're saying something that's untrustworthy. I'm saying like, how do we correctly understand the book? And so I'm going to try to just bring it into context. So like I said, I'm not going to do a deep dive, but I want you to be able to open up the book, kind of read it a little bit, and not be overwhelmed right away and be like, oh, this is just too confusing. I can't understand any of this. It's just too much. So Revelation 1:1 says that this is a revelation of Jesus Christ to us. He tells John, write the things which you have seen, which is John's past, the things which are, John's present, and the things which will take place after this, John's future. So the Lord establishes the book and the outline of the book, and it follows our linear understanding of time, past, present, and future. And so if we're to take the sections, Revelation 1:1 earlier before verse 19, John writes about how Jesus shed his blood, how that he now has conquered death and Hades, and he holds the keys, and he was alive, dead, and now is alive forevermore. And so that is part of John's past. John's present then happens in Revelation 2 and 3, where he writes letters to the churches of 7 churches in Asia that existed at his present time. And so that's what we're looking at. So we see these 7 letters to the 7 churches in chapters 2 and 3. Then in Revelation 4:1, it says, after these things I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, come up here, and I will show you things which must take place after this. So now we're looking into John's future. Revelation 5, John sees the Lamb, Jesus, being given a scroll with 7 seals. Revelation 6 shows Jesus opening 6 of the 7 seals in the numerical order that we would count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seals. Then in Revelation 8:1, Jesus opens the 7th seal. Right after that, Revelation 8:2 introduces 7 trumpets. But the 7th seal is already completed. So the 7 trumpets are introduced. Revelation 8:7, the first trumpet blows, which means that the trumpet events don't come until after the 7th seal. This is important. Now, it could be milliseconds after the 7th seal. It could be like, 7th seal is broken. There's half an hour of peace, it says, or silence in heaven. And it could be like right after that, the first trumpet blows. But regardless, how we're supposed to understand the order of things is that the trumpets come after the seals. And so Revelation chapters 8 to 9, we see 6 of the 7 trumpets are blown, and they're blown in order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then Revelation 10 shows John seeing a little seal. He eats it, and it's sweet and then bitter. Revelation 11 verses 1 and 2 shows the temple rebuilt in Jerusalem. Revelation 11:3 talks about something, and I'm gonna come back to this in just a moment. And then what we see here, oh, pardon me, sorry, just getting ahead of myself. And then here, verse 15 of Revelation 11, here about 2/3 down the page, it says that the 7th trumpet blows. So what I just want to show you is that we're going to look at and say Revelation 1 to Revelation 11:15 is in chronological order. You see the 7 seals, then you see the 7 trumpets, and they all happen in numerical order. the Bible makes a distinction that once the 7 seals happens, then there's the 7 trumpets. And so however we're reading it, whatever understanding we get, we need to understand that from chapters 1 to chapter 11, verse 15, is in chronological order. Okay, now I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk about this section for Revelation chapter 11, verse 3 to Revelation 11, verse 15. It begins with a timeline within a timeline. So, like I said, we covered chronological order, but now here in verse 3 it says, if you watch my video on Daniel 70th week, you'll understand that in Daniel 9 we see that 69 of these 70 weeks goes from a decree to rebuild Jerusalem, which was in 445 BC, to Messiah suffering the death penalty in Passover 32 AD. That was 69 of the 70th weeks. We understand the context now of the 69 weeks because we know when Jesus died on the cross, when he suffered the death penalty. We know how all that worked, and I showed that in that video. So we can know that the 70th week, the final week of this prophecy, which is 7 years based on the 360-day lunar calendar, which is 2,520 days. This is important because in the next verse in Daniel, verse 27, it says that the 7-year period, this 2,520 day week, or days of a week, is split into 2 halves of 3.5 years, or 2 periods of 1,260 days. So when we get to Revelation 11:3, it tells us 2 witnesses who are invincible, and we see that they're invincible, that people try to kill them and they don't die, and they speak and fire comes out of their mouth, but that these are invincible, these are divine beings, and they preach for 1,260 days, or for 3.5 years, which is the first half of the 70th week. So when you study this topic, you're going to come up with videos, and people are going to talk about a 7-year tribulation period. That's what this period is talking about, the 70th week of Daniel, called the 7-year tribulation period. I don't like using the word tribulation period. I just call it a 7-year period. And the reason I don't is because what a lot of Christians make the mistake when they read, okay, when does the 7-year tribulation period start? Well, tribulation sounds bad. It sounds difficult. And so a lot of them will assume that in Revelation 6, where all these events begin, you've got the first seal and the second seal and so on, that's when the 7-year begins. And that's a mistake to me, that because we can see the chronological order of events between Revelation chapter 1 and then when the seals start in chapter 6, that we see this 7 seals play out first, then the 7 trumpets, that here in Revelation 11, we're showing when the 7-year period starts. It doesn't happen in Revelation 6. And so here, these 2 witnesses, first the temple is rebuilt, then we have these 2 witnesses preaching for 1,260 days. Then, and verse 7, it says, when the 2 witnesses finish their testimony, 1,260 days or 3.5 years, the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit will make war against them, overcome them, and kill them. And so after these 2 are killed, we see in verse 15 trumpets 7 blows. So you have trumpets 1 to 6, then you're going to see the temple rebuilt, then you're going to see these 2 witnesses preach for 1,260 days. The beast is going to rise, kill them, who's nobody's been able to do at this point. So you've got these 2 messengers of God. Now all of a sudden you have this beast character rise up and make war against them and overcome them and kill them. The whole world is going to be amazed to say, nobody's been able to kill these people. We know they're from God. Who's going to be able to make war against? Is this person more powerful than God and his witnesses? And so like that's the tension that's going to be created when this beast kills these 2 witnesses, but God is going to allow it. He's predicted that their deaths will occur, and then they will be called up to heaven, and the whole world will see it. And then we see in Revelation 12, now there's debate on this passage because it talks about Satan and his angels being kicked down to earth. So some people say, well, Satan was in the garden. But in Job, we see that Satan goes to and from heaven and earth. And so it's not like Satan is has never been on earth before, or that this is sometime in the past. I believe that all this Revelation 12, all that it's talking about is that he's kicked out of heaven. He's not going back and forth from heaven to earth anymore, as he talks about in Job 1. That this is like he's now been sentenced to earth. And so he's kicked out of heaven. Satan and his angels all come down to earth. And so when in Revelation 13:1 we see the beast rise. In verse 3, and I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed. And again, this miracle, right? Supposed to have suffered a deadly wound, he's healed. The whole world is marveled and amazed at the beast, and they follow the beast because so he's now he's now had this resurrection, or this survival of this deadly wound. The beast, um, and then so they worship the dragon who gave authority to the beast, and they worship the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" And he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. He was given authority to continue for 42 months, 42 months being 3.5 years. Then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven. It was granted to him to make war with the saints and overcome them, and authority was given to him over every tribe, tongue, and every nation. And so, breaking down this passage, we have this beast. I believe that the false Messiah that we see that's going to come, I believe that because of that he's lifted high, he's exalted as the Messiah. The Messiah has come, he's bringing this messianic age, he brings this time of peace after this terrible time of war. And then I think that he's going to become this beast. It's kind of like, and I know that I'm going to pull a pop culture reference. I think the way that we should view the this whole false Messiah, Antichrist, to this beast, this total maniacal tyrant. I heard one pastor years ago say that this beast is going to make Hitler look like a choir boy. And so, just to give you some context, and so what I want you to picture, and how I want you to understand this character, this person, is kind of think of the Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader kind of trajectory, where he's going to start off being a a godly person. It talks about that this messianic figure is going to know the law. He's going to be considered righteous. He's going to be considered a very moral, because he knows the Torah. He knows the law. He does these things. He's going to institute justice, and it's going to be this, to me, what I believe is going to be this religious authoritarian society. So you've got this terrible time of war. There's chaos. There's destruction. He brings this peace agreement to the nations of the world, and so now there's peace in the world. Do I think it's a peace of freedom? No, I think it's going to be a very authoritarian type of religious peace, where the law, the Mosaic law, is used as the stick that he keeps order with. And so and then I think that after this deadly wound, and he's praised by the world, and he's healed, and that's when he becomes indwelt by Satan, that he becomes the epitome of evil on earth. He's able to kill these two witnesses of God. He's able to kill Christians and all the saints, and that he basically becomes like I said, makes Hitler look like a choir boy, and basically anybody who gets in his path, he's going to run over, whether it be leaders of nations, whoever it is. He's given authority over every tribe, tongue, and nation for 42 months, or the final 3.5 years. And Jesus talks about in Matthew 24 that this period of time, this final 3.5 year period, is going to be a time of anguish, a time of terribleness that the world has never seen before or will ever see again. And this is one of the things that I think that a lot of Christians are concerned about and afraid of, because um, we don't want, first of all, selfishly, we don't want to go through a period of time like this, and we sure don't want our loved ones or anybody else to have to go through a period of time like this. And so, but we need to understand this is what the Bible predicts. It talks about the 7 year period split between 3.5 years of these two witnesses preaching. But I believe, like I said, during that 3.5 year period, it's going to be a time of peace, but it's going to be this religious authoritarianism. Then you've got this event where this mortal, this moral deadly wound, whatever happens to this false Messiah, this Antichrist, he's going to survive, he's going to be healed, but I believe that he's going to be indwelt by Satan and given authority over the earth by Satan. And he's going to be able to kill those two witnesses, and he's going to be able to stand in the temple of God, proclaim all sorts of blasphemy, defile the temple, and not be vaporized. Because if you remember in the Old Testament, you had to follow these certain rituals. Otherwise, when you entered the temple, you would be vaporized. And so he's going to basically shake his fist at God. He's going to say, um, I'm more powerful, whatever, and he's going to be allowed to have these three miracles, um, you know, and be able to stand in the temple and not be vaporized. And so people are going to marvel at this and say, like, who can make war with him? Like, is he even greater than God? And some people are going to follow him. But again, because it's been prophesied that God is going to allow this, um, then we need to pay attention. And so, after these miracles, quote unquote, this false Messiah, this beast now has been able to perform, there's a character called the false prophet that then gets the whole world to worship the beast, to worship him, to say, look, he's been able to, survive a mortal head wound. He's been able to kill the two witnesses of God. He's been able to stand in the temple and uh, declare war against God, proclaim blasphemies and not be vaporized. And so then this mark of the beast that Revelation 13:16-18 talks about is issued, that no one can buy or sell, and that they have to worship the beast. And people are going to accept it. People are going to worship a beast because there are always people who are not, like, they are against God for whatever reason. They choose, they're going to see, and it says that they know that the Satan is giving the beast the power. They worship Satan, who has given the beast authority. Um, and so people are going to choose him. So they're going to willingly take this mark, take this pledge of allegiance, where they're going to be able to participate in buying and selling. It's going to be an economic thing, but it's also going to be a worship thing, a willing. This is the choice. This is the allegiance that they choose. This is the side that they choose. And so when we get to Revelation 14, we see that this chapter spans from Revelation 7 to 13, where the Lord sends three angels to preach three messages at various different times to the world for humanity to choose. One of the angelic warnings is not to take the mark of the beast. Well, the Lord isn't going to send an angel to preach to the whole world, don't take the mark of the beast, because after the beast has been issued. Like, you're not going to have a bunch of people saying, okay, I'm going to take this because I want to buy and sell, I want to be able to eat, I want to be able to do all these things, and then have an angel go over the world saying, hey, don't take this. And they'll be like, it's already too late, I've already taken it. So the third message of the angelic messages is don't take the mark of the beast. So if we haven't seen this angelic warning to not take this mark, that it's going to bring the wrath of God on you, if we haven't seen that, we haven't seen the mark. What if you see a video saying, "Oh, this is the mark of the beast," whether it be a CBDC or whatever it is, or in the past, and during the one person calls the cervasis sickness, um, that a lot of videos coming out about this is the mark of the beast, don't take it. No, it's not. If you haven't seen angelic warning and an angel going across the earth warning not to take it, it's not the mark. The Lord is going to warn the earth before that's going to happen. So that's a key as you're trying to understand this whole topic. That's how you know somebody who's putting out videos like that doesn't understand this book, and they're just using it because they're afraid. They're afraid of, and I've seen this for 30 years. I remember when the chips, that we have on our credit cards or debit cards was put on. Oh, there's the chip. That's the mark of the beast. Don't take it. No, everything is moving towards a digital global economy, a cashless society, to where somebody could then where you have something, whether and it could be implanted chip, microchip, or something like that, but where it's something to give you access to the digital economy, and that the digital economy then is taken over by the beast, where that it becomes the central bank of the world or whatever it is, and that they can shut off your account, they can add money to, like, and so that's like all these steps that are happening are going to be, it's going to be taken advantage of by this beast that we see. But until we get to that point, let's not panic, let's not get all crazy about it. And the Lord will warn the world, this is coming, don't take it. It's going to bring the wrath of God. And so we see that in Revelation 14. Then in Revelation 15, we see the bowl judgments that are introduced. Revelation 16 is it says that the first bowl judgment is is given to people who receive the mark of the beast. So we see that Revelation 16:2, the first bowl judgment, comes after Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 to 18, where the mark is issued. And so we see the first bowl is for those who receive the mark, and then it happens in numerical order again. Chapter 16 is bowl 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Revelation 17 talks about the kingdom of the beast, which is for the final 42 months of the last half of the 7 years, because the authority of the kings the authority is given to them the same time that the beast is given authority. And so that's in Revelation 13 for the last 42 months. Revelation 18, the kingdom of the beast is destroyed. Revelation 19, verse 11 to 16, Jesus returns. And then I'm going to pause here, and we're going to talk about how this ties into seal 1 from Revelation 6, verses 1 and 2. So I want you, again, just get your Bibles and just read Revelation 19, verses 11 to 16, and see what it says. And then we're going to compare that to Revelation chapter 6, verses 1 and 2. So we can understand how we get the first sign, what to look for, and what to watch for. So here it says here, the first seal. Now I saw the Lamb, okay, so Jesus, open one of the seals. And I heard one of the four living creatures say with a loud voice, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a white horse. And he who sat on it had a bow and a crown, and it was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer. Okay? So just kind of put those in your mind, and then we're going to go to Revelation 19. Okay, we're going to scroll down to, now I saw heaven open, and behold, whoa, a white horse, and he who sat on him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he judges and makes war. His eyes were like a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. He had a name written that no one knew except himself. He was clothed in a robe dipped in blood, and his name was called the Word of God. And the armies of heaven, clothed in fine linen, white and clean, followed him on white horses. Now out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should strike the nations, and he himself will rule them with a rod of iron. He himself treads the winepress of the fierceness of wrath of God, Almighty God, and he has on his robe and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And so, notice how both of these riders come on white horses. The first rider in Revelation 6 has one crown. Here, this is Jesus' return. He has many crowns. In the first, the rider then has a bow, no arrow. Here, Jesus has a sharp sword. In the first, the rider, he's sent out to conquer. Here, Jesus returns to rule them with a rod of iron. And so, the idea here is that in Revelation 6, the first is a false Messiah. It's a first false image of what Jesus' return is going to look like. It's going to be a false everything. It's going to be imposter. It's going to be a mimic. It's going to look like what it's going to be what we expect. Okay, we have this image. Jesus is going to come back. He's got these. He's going to do these things. These are things that he's going to do. And this imposter is going to come beforehand in seal 1, and he's going to. And that's why I say that I believe that seal 1 is the false Jewish Messiah. That the Jewish people are going to say, "Here, our Messiah has come. After all this time we've been waiting, he's going to come. He's going to do the same things that the Bible says that Jesus will do, but he's going to do it in advance, and it's going to be a mimic. It's going to be a um, a false messianic kingdom, a false peace. It's just going to be an illusion. It's going to look like, oh, he's brought peace. He's going to do all these things, but it's going to be he's going to be an imposter. And that's why when you follow the first 3.5 years, oh, people are going to believe. Oh no, like look, no, the Messiah is here. It's going to be the Messianic kingdom is set up. Look, we've gone from a terrible time of war to a time of peace, but it's going to be this false religious authoritarianism. It's not going to be true peace. It's not going to be true freedom that Jesus brings. And so that's why when we look at the rider on the white horse in seal 1, and we compare it to Jesus's return, it's this mimic, this imposter, this false kingdom, this false peace that he brings. And so that's why when I talk about looking at the first seal as the first event that to watch that. And so this is going. I know it's going to get a little bit complicated. I don't want you to feel like it's complicated, so I'm going to just go through it slowly. As we read the book of Revelation, and as we look at the timeline, as we enter the final 50th year jubilee before the millennial kingdom, we're looking for the first sign. Seal 1, the false Messiah, the declaration that the Messiah, long-awaited Messiah, has come. And then we'll know, okay, this is the Antichrist. This is the anti-Jesus, way of salvation. He's going to promote the law as the way of salvation, where Jesus said, I've come to fulfill the law. Believe in me. It's going to, like I said, it's going to be this religious authoritarianism instead of this kingdom of peace and of freedom. Then we're going to see if the Jewish rabbi is correct. He's going to make this appearance. He's going to be declared, okay, the Messiah has come, but he's got to go away. He's got to get instructions. He's got to do stuff, but he's going to fade into the background, and then he'll make a second appearance. And the rabbi believes it'll be a year later. But so seal 1 happens. He's revealed. He's declared to be the long-awaited Messiah. It's going to fade into the background. Seals 2 to 7. Well, seal 2 is pieces removed from the earth. Seal 3 is global hyperinflation where people can't afford bread, their currency is worthless. It says that it takes a day's wages to buy even flour to make a loaf of bread. Seal 4 is World War III, where 1/4 of the world goes to war. Seal 5 is the martyrdom of Christians. And if we look at, for example, the BRICS alliance, if they were to win in a global war, a lot of those nations aren't. They're when you look at the top 50 nations of where Christians are martyred, a lot of them are part of the BRICS alliance. And so you've got Seal 5. Seal 6, I believe, is the Gog Magog war, where the certain nations come against Israel. Israel's in trouble because they have no allies. Whether America and the West have turned against them, or they no longer exist, or they're just too decimated to be of any impact. But Israel stands by itself, and so God intervenes, and that's when the wrath of God comes. And I believe that that's where the rapture happens. The church is taken out either before seal 1 or any time but before seal 6. The rapture happens because that's when God pours out his wrath on those nations for attacking Israel, and he wipes them out. And then the whole world knows that the God of Israel exists, and that they worship him. And so um, but then I think that this war is all the events from Revelation 6, the sixth seal, to the trumpets, and some of the trumpets from 1 to 6. And then after all those things are poured out, then the time of war ends, where the whole world sees that God is protecting Israel, and this false Messiah reappears, and the time of war ends, and the person from seal 1, the Antichrist, the false Messiah, leads the nations in a peace agreement for 7 years, which begins in Revelation 11. And so we see here the red line that the 7 years begin. The temple is rebuilt. We see the two witnesses preach for 1260 days. I believe, like I said, the false Messiah reigns through religious authoritarianism. And um, then we see the false Messiah defiles the temple after the 1260 days, and the final 3 years begin. We see the mark of the beast and the seven bowl judgments in that final 3 years, and then the second coming. Once the 7 year peace agreement is signed by the nations, we know that it's 7 years to the second coming, but it's an unknown time from now, from 2024 and into 2025, for the 7 year peace agreement. That time of war could begin in 2000. It could begin in this year, and it could carry on for 20 years, and then we could have the war ends and the 7 year peace agreement signed, and then 7 years to the second coming. We don't know that. What we have to, what we have is these events that we're supposed to watch, and so we're supposed to see. Okay, the declaration of the false Messiah is seal 1. Then we're going to see war and hyperinflation and things break out. Then we might have a long period of peace until the nations come against Israel. And then we see that war take place. And then after that war, when God of Israel, Lord God, reveals himself to the world by saving Israel from those nations. Otherwise, they would be wiped out. And the whole world says, God has saved them. And then this false Messiah will rise again, will come forward and facilitate the 7 year peace agreement. And so I'm not here to set dates. I'm just trying to show that here's all the things that we're to watch for, to show the timeline, to say this is how we know that the Bible is true. This is how we know that Jesus is God, because he's predicted all of these things in advance. The Bible has predicted all of these events in numerical order. We've got the seven seals, we've got the seven trumpets, we've got the seven bowls, all these things, all these events happening, and they're going to fall in line. And we're just supposed to watch the signs. And so if at any point you feel like, man, things are getting too bad, things are getting crazy, I've lost my job, we've got, all these things are happening, that you would just turn to Jesus. That's the whole message of this. And so here's how Bible prophecy works. We have the 6,000 year calendar. 6,000 years from Adam and Eve to the second coming. Then 1,000 years from the Messianic age of the millennial kingdom, 7,000 years total. We see that from 1948 plus 103 years is to 2051. That's the event, the first super event. To know that the time, the window has begun, is the fig tree blooms. That we've got this lifespan of 103 years to the second coming. So now we're in 2024 to 2044, leaving the 7, because if we say 2051 is the second coming, that Jesus is going to return the second coming, while leaving room for the final 7 years. We've got a 20-year period between 2024 and 2044 that it could take the whole 20 years for the seals and the 6 trumpets to happen, for all this time of war to happen before the false Messiah comes and signs and facilitates the 7-year peace treaty between the nations. But I don't believe that's going to be 20 years. I believe that this time frame is going to happen very quickly. I think it could even start in this year or next year, that we start seeing these wars increase, that we see this declaration of this Messiah, because and I'll show you in a minute an article where some Jewish people believe they've already met the Messiah. They're just waiting for him to be revealed, for him to reveal himself. And so then we see in Revelation 11 that the false Messiah facilitates global peace for 7 years. We see that's 2,520 days, and that we see the 2 witnesses preach for 3.5 years. And then the false Messiah defiles the temple, declaring that he is God in Revelation 13, and then his reign lasts for 42 months, or the final 3.5 years, until the second coming. And so we see these landmark events. Like I said, I'm not here to predict. I just know that when that 7-year peace treaty between the nations is facilitated by this false Messiah, that is the final 7 years. And then at the midway mark, we're going to see the 2 witnesses killed. We're going to see the temple in Jerusalem be defiled. And we know that starts the final 42 months or 3.5 years until the second coming. That's all we know. Up until then, we just know that we're in the window of time. We're entering the final 50-year period. We know that there's a 7-year period before the second coming, and then the establishment of the millennial kingdom. And so we follow these signs that the Bible has laid out within the window that we've been given, and that's how we know that the Bible is true. It's not to pick the exact date or the exact time, just to know that we're in the window. And so, because God wants us to see this plan, He doesn't want us to say, oh, here's the date, on this exact date, at this exact hour, these things are going to happen. He just wants us to watch. He wants to know that He is guiding everything into place to show us that His word is coming true, and that He loves us enough to give us the free will. He doesn't force us to go to war. He doesn't force people to trust a religious tyrant, this false Messiah, but we choose it. And He lets us know, you're going to choose it. The Jewish people are going to declare this Messiah, that they come, because He's going to fit their image of Jesus didn't fit the image of the Messiah, and that's why they rejected Him. He doesn't force world leaders or nations to go to war, whether something happens that they feel it's right, or they're wrong for going to war. We're going to go to war. He doesn't say we have to wreck the planet with war and more war, and bring ourselves to the brink of extinction. But we will. And He allows humanity to choose to say at any point, Lord, I need help with my life, and the world and I are a mess. Please save me. Or, I will never bow to God. I don't care if we wreck the planet or my life, I will be my own God and I will find a way to fix it. We either see ourselves as God or we see God as God. And so I believe that the false Messiah is the Antichrist, is the beast, because the term Antichrist is it's a Greek word and the prefix means anti, in place of or instead of, in opposition to, and Christ means anointed one. Well, guess what? In Hebrew, Messiah means anointed one. So the Antichrist can also be called the false Messiah to the Jewish people. He is a person and he will be received as the Messiah and declared to be the long-awaited Messiah by the Jewish people in place of Jesus. If Jesus is the true Messiah and Savior of humanity, then anyone else is an impostor, counterfeit, and Antichrist. And it could start out when this period of time happens, when this reveal happens, there could be many false false messiahs, many antichrists, but one will rise up to rule over all the others, who will do miracles, who will be worshipped, who will rule with a religious authoritarianism and eventually be a global tyrant. There will only be one final antichrist. Revelation 13 says, and all the world marveled and followed the beast, so they worshipped the dragon, Satan, who gave authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, who is the beast who is able to make war with him? And so what I want from you is and what I pray for you is that you will just turn to the Lord, that you will see in these videos, this time has been prophesied a long time ago. These events are going to come to pass, and that God is giving us this timeline, this layout of events, all these things for people to say, we can't fix this. We're going to go through a terrible time because we've chosen it. And I'm going to cover that in the next video. This isn't God condemning us. We've chosen this path. He's simply saying, you're going to choose this path. You're going to choose to, like, hyperinflation is not because of God. It's because of reckless monetary policies around the world. Going to war isn't because of God. God doesn't want us to go to war and destroy each other. But our leaders, we're going to go to war. They're telling us this is what's going to happen. Countries are talking about, I can't remember the word, and I'm going to have to look it up for the next video, but conscripting people again, drafting, the draft. We choose this path. There are 6 seals in Revelation 6 that happen in that one chapter. They're all human led. They're all because of human decisions. God is just telling us, look, this is going to happen. These are the order that things are going to happen. You're going to this is the path you're going to choose. And he tells us in advance because he is God. And he knows this is the path that we're going to take. And at any point in time, any one of us can say, Lord, I have chosen the things in my life. I have chosen every decision in my life I have made, and I've made a mess of it. We have chosen this path. We have made a mess of the world. Please forgive me. Please save my life. Please save my soul, and surrender to him. We have every opportunity to do that. And he has given us the opportunity by showing us these things so that we will believe. Jesus says that when he came, he says, to the Jewish people, you will not receive me. But if another comes in his own name, him you'll receive. He talks about false messiahs, right? And right now, the Israeli rabbi, as of September 29, 2022, says that he's already holding meetings with the Messiah. A snapshot of Israel's spiritual hunger is the biggest rabbis are afraid to leave the country lest they miss the Messiah's coming, right? And so it talks about, that he believes that the time is coming for the Messiah's imminent arrival. And so that is the first sign. That is what I would watch for. And I'm telling you this in advance so that when it happens, you can see that the Bible has predicted this and the events that are going to come afterwards. And I'll cover that in part 5 a little bit more about this, the the rest, some of the other seals. But the point is that the days are going to get dark. They're going to get darker. We have made a mess of things so bad. My background is in finance and the financial arena, and I'm not the most expert at it, but I do understand a little bit about it. And what I understand is that in 1914, the US dollar was worth $1. Today, the US dollar is worth 3.2 cents, if that. That's a loss of 97% of value of the currency since 1914. Why? Because of reckless spending. And I'll give you a couple of videos to understand how devaluation of currencies, but all the major currencies around the world are virtually worthless. We're coming to the end of our fiat money system. And the problem is that when money is worthless, when our dollars currency that we use is worthless, we cannot buy stuff. That's why everything goes up in price, is because it's not that everything costs more, but it's because the dollars that we use to buy those goods and services have less value to them. Yes, they may show a specific dollar amount on them, but intrinsically that currency is worth less. And so that is what the problem is. That's going to create huge economic problems globally as we enter the final stage of the currency life cycle. And this is a global phenomenon. This is a global event that's going to be taking place. And that's the problem, is that people all around the world are going to have food issues, famines, not be able to buy food. And when people can't eat, when people can't afford food, you're going to see violence and riots and anger and chaos like I don't think we've ever seen around the world. And when leaders are afraid and they want to turn their domestic issues outward, they want to stop people being upset at the government, they'll take you to war. They'll find an existential enemy that the country can rally around and band towards, and so it's going to get tough. And I just want you to watch these videos. I want you to see the evidence. I would pray that you would just right now get on your knees, bow your head, and just talk to God, whatever is on your heart. If you're struggling, if you have doubt, I remember when I prayed out to God and I didn't even believe He was there. I thought maybe I had a little bit of faith, but I said, God, if you're there, and I kept praying that because I had no other alternative. I needed Him to show me who He was, and I just put it out there. Like I had a little bit of faith to say, like, I believe God exists, and I need Him to show who He is. I need Him to show me that He is there. And if we humble ourselves, I believe that He will. I know that He did that for me as a huge skeptic, 30 years ago, and I know that He'll do that for you. And so I pray that you would just call out to Him right now. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just tell Him what's on your heart. If you're lonely, if you're struggling, if you're battling depression, or you're battling addiction, or whatever you are struggling with, whatever is on your heart, or if you're going through good times, then thank Him for the good times. Thank Him that He has protected you, that He has provided for you, because that these times are ending, and so it's going to get very difficult for a lot of people. And I pray that at any moment that you're like, man, I think this is true. I think this guy, what he's been saying and telling us advance, these things are starting to happen. That you'll turn to Jesus, and that you'll put your trust in Him. That you'll believe that He is God, that He loves you, that He came to die for your sins so that you could receive His gift of eternal life, and know that this life is not the end. This life is to teach us lessons. It is a preparation ground for the life to come. We will be an active part in the next life, in living forever. But there are things that we need to learn, we need to go through, we need to understand how sin and our choices cause destruction. That if we try to run our own life without Him, it just ends in total madness and loneliness and despair and depression. But that if we can turn to Him, and we may still struggle with things. Being a follower of Jesus is not doesn't make your life rosy. What it does is it gives you an understanding that when you're going through hard times in life, because we're all going to go through hard times in life, that we know it's for a purpose. There's a greater plan. There's a greater purpose. There's things we need to learn. There's things we need to understand. But there is a hope. And the reason I stopped at Revelation 19 is because that if you read Revelation 21 and 22, you will see the hope of after. Revelation 20 is the millennial kingdom. There's judgment day and there's things that are going on. But if you read Revelation 21 and 22, you will see the hope of the Bible. You'll see that all of this, everything that has happened, everything that is going to happen, has a purpose, and it all leads to that. It leads to a world, an eternity where there is no war, there is no sickness, there is no death, and we live forever with God because we want to, because we see what it's like to live life on our own terms without God. And so I just pray for everybody who's listening that they would surrender to Jesus today, and if not soon, because the days are going to get dark. But thank you so much for your time. I pray that the Lord will bless you and keep you until we talk again. Take care.